Welcome to Blueprint Boost for Contractors, the podcast that's your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to successful marketing, gaining valuable insights, and growing your contracting business with less stress. Your host is David Brooks, and he's thrilled to be your guide on this journey. As a seasoned expert in the contracting industry, David understands the challenges you face. That's why each episode is crafted to provide you with actionable strategies and proven blueprints to boost your business to new heights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast. I'm your host, David Brooks, powered by Contractor Rhino. We have a special guest with us for this episode. I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hey everybody, I'm Todd Liles. I'm the owner of Service Excellence and the founder of Your Accountability Partner and my Table of Kings and my Kings of Tomorrow. That's a mouthful, isn't it, David?
You said it, but you said it good.
All right.
All right, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Happy to talk to you. Hey, I know you're interviewing me, David, but I'm gonna tell you, I didn't know who you were before you sent the request to me. So it made me go, well, David's new in the game and everybody's new and deserves a chance to get going. But I took the interview for a couple of reasons. I'm going to tell you what it is, and then I'm going to ask you some questions.
Mhm.
The first reason was when I looked at your website and it was, Contractor Rhino, I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's interesting. I've got a lot of friends out there that do marketing, but most of them are focused purely on the residential plumbing, home services, electrical, air conditioning spaces. And when I'm looking at what you're doing, it looked a little bit more true to what we think about in the contracting world. It looked like you're talking to construction workers, kitchen remodelers. And I found myself going, cabinetry, right? I found myself going, you know what? I'm going to talk to David for a very personal reason, which is my background is in home construction as a teenager before I ever started doing air conditioning.
Mhm.
So that piqued my interest. And I also found myself going, not a lot of people are advertising there. And I still have a brother-in-law who got me into the trades, who I love, and his son runs this cabinetry business.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, I got to talk to David about this. So David, you guys are doing marketing from a little bit different angle. You're not just going straight after, the plumbers and the AC guys. What are you guys doing over there, man? So that's my first interview question in your interview with me.
No, I like that question. We went in that direction because growing up, I was exposed to a lot of different contractors and not just your roofing, HVAC, plumbing. We had our house remodeled at early 90s at a very early age for me. So, being young and having a ball of energy, I'm meeting all the different contractors that are coming through and got paving, we're getting our kitchen redone. So we're talking about cabinets and just carpenters and painters and just really being able to see the work that they were doing on the house and transforming things was really amazing to me. And then taking that and then wanting to get into the trades myself eventually over the course of time, I had the opportunity to work with electricians and plumbers and construction and go out and just, you know, go on those job sites and do the little work that I could do with the little knowledge that I did have back at that time. And it was such a joy to me. It really was something that I had a peak interest in. And I think it was this misperception to me back then where, certain people viewed a certain trades person as more important than this person, like, oh, we don't worry about these guys, right? And I said, well, everybody's important to me because I can learn something from everybody. I think everybody's business is, valuable and it offers a really high level of service to what you might need, whether that be on the commercial or residential side. And I just wanted to be able to have that opportunity to come and say, hey, look, I'm going to be able to sit down with you. I'm going to be able to help you with your marketing strategy and plan. But Also, I'm going to take those things and those values that I've got instilled in me from the contractors I was working with early in my younger years and say, okay, they prided themselves on doing really good work, doing an honest job, letting you know the work that's going to be done, what exactly that you needed. And I want to be able to do that in the marketing aspect of being able to give you world-class service, being able to provide a solution that you need, to be able to give you strategic recommendation and not, fluff and no lie. Like I'm not going to tell you you need something if you don't need it, but it's going to be
So,
strategic.
so an interesting perspective. That was my first question, uh, which then had me thinking, like, how successful are you at actually getting people to book calls for that type of business, right? Because to me, it's different than a plumber who has an immediate service business. When something is leaking, people hop on Google, they start searching, they're easily found. If I have, a home project like cabinets,
Mhm.
and maybe I want to add some beautification to it or whatnot, that's the sort of thing that I may let mill about in my head for years before I ever take action on.
Mhm.
So, how are you cost effectively getting in front of people? Like, what's your strategy there?
Yeah, so we do a variety of different strategies. A lot of it is just relationship building, brand awareness, really having conversations and making people know that we do offer this service, right? You can improve on your foundation and get more visibility. So a lot of it's through, conversations. So we have conversations on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. We do emails, and organic SEO is something that we're invested in too as well. So that is, people are able to find us, but also that, that I think the educational aspect is what we really pride ourselves in offering to people.
Got it. Well, this is your show. I have a few more that are loaded in the hopper, but I'll save them. So thanks for giving me a chance just to get to know you a little better, because this is our first conversation, and I think I got at least two more for you that I'll ask you, but I'm gonna turn it back over to you and let you go first, brother.
Yeah, no, sure. I appreciate it.
All
So
right.
could you tell us about the story about how everything came about? What inspired you to start the company?
Yeah, uh, absolutely. So, 13 years ago, I separated from my business partnership with Will Hawkins. We've remained cordial. And Will and I started a plumbing and heating and air conditioning company in Austin. Um, we started recruiting folks in early 2008, and I think we ran our first call. It was either April or May. Recruited technicians of 2008 when the recession hit. Right, what a time to start an air conditioning company. And we didn't buy anyone. We started it from scratch. So in our second year, we did like 3.5 million, and by going into the third year, I always had a vision of starting a training company, and Will and I had a lot of discussions, and I said, well, I'm gonna let you keep doing that. I'm gonna sell my piece back off to you. I got very little money. I basically walked away from it, but my non-competes were up, and then I started this because I've always had a passion for teaching people. The first card that I had in the business was for an air conditioning company where I had my name on a business card, and it was called a marketing analyst, which was a fancy way of saying salesperson. I couldn't sell anything. So I volunteered my time on nights and weekends to go work with the guys and work underneath masters and learn from them. And that was super helpful. And once I had learned the trade and could communicate it, my sales grew exponentially. And not just my sales, but I was also seeking out learning opportunities. Like, I wanted to take us from just simple refrigeration to really advanced refrigeration, like rack systems that you have in grocery stores, which meant we had to get a lot of education. So I got uh, Carlisle Compressors, which is a division of Carrier out of Syracuse, to come down. They trained us all, and then when they would leave, I would reinforce the training. So my actual first steps of training, I wouldn't call myself a technical trainer today. I've not done technical work for a very long time, but my first real aspects in the world of training was actually teaching technical things. We did energy management control systems very early with a company called Solidyne, where we had to program complete, banks and field houses, and I would create these designs. So I fell in love with training, and I fell in love with sales kind of at the same time. And I was doing the sales, wasn't really training anyone else to the sales, but I caught the attention of Clockwork Home Services. They hired me as a trainer. I became the youngest director of their training program, and that's how I met Will. And then eventually, at 31-ish, around that age, I started this. I'm 45 now, so you got a couple months, so not quite 14 years, a little over 13 years. But I started this, and in the beginning, it was literally nothing more than I just want to do what I love and feed my family, and if I could do a couple $100,000 in top line revenue and pay for websites and stuff, hey, I'd be fine with that. Well, it's turned into, a multi-million dollar business with, 16 of us here, and we're growing. So I'm really happy with this. And it's come from just being like a lifestyle to like, oh, you know what? This is actually a really legitimate business that's really helping a lot of people. So yeah, that's if you can believe it, David, that's the short version of it.
No, that's really nice how that came about. And you're on your journey and you are where you are now. But there was in the middle of all this, it was a rebranding. Can you tell us about that?
Well, we are actually in 13 years, we're actually on our fourth brand. Always service excellence, but we had training on it. The first one, and okay, so like here's the thing that you got to think about, right? When we say brand, what do we really mean? Do we mean brand or do we mean visual graphics? And I think this is the thing that I want to take a moment and recognize one of my mentors, Roy Williams, who's really has shaped the way I see things more in the last 2 years than ever before. But I thought, like a lot of folks thought, that, your brand is the visual graphic that you represent yourself by. Well, if we go by the visual graphic that I created myself, it was literally clip art. I grabbed like four pieces of clip art and said, these clip arts represent us. So there's a book, there's a lion, and and there's a scroll. We're gonna go with that. And I rocked that clip art for a couple of years. And then a little bit later on, I said, well, this clip art could look better than this. So the brand that we rocked, the visual graphic, I should say, that we rocked for the longest time, some of you guys might remember we were green and black. And we had a black powerful lion face in the middle and a green laurel and a scroll right above his head. And it was all very symbolic and very personal to me. By the way, look, I even got the lion face. I don't know if you can see that.
I
All
can
right, I got
see
the lion face
it.
right there. So imagine that with a scroll over it. Um, but then along the way, really about 3 years ago, I think it's about 3 years ago, I realized that just those green and the black colors, I'm still in the world of visual branding right now, right? Visual graphic design. I'm like, that doesn't really represent us as well as I'd like it would. I think it's a little confusing. So I hired Dan Antonelli of Kick Charge, and Dan did a great job, which really weirds people out when I go, Dan did a great job for us, but yet we have changed. And a lot of you guys might even be surprised, might be running over the website to look, but we've changed again. But Dan did some things that took it even to the next level. He came up with a color palette, visually very pretty, the oranges and the blues that you see. And he created this really great looking, wrench with a flame. And I love it. I've got it trademarked, and I'm still going to leverage that visual design a lot of ways and keep that trademark alive. But now we go to brand. Well, I go talk to Roy and I say, Roy, for us to grow to the next level, I really, and this is after building a relationship with Roy and him teaching me that brand is not a visual, but brand is what people think about you and it's what they feel about you. It's that lingering sort of essence in someone's mind. And I'm not saying it quite as poetically as he's saying it, but he's visiting with me, and I said, Roy, I'd like to hire your team. I'd like to hire your team to help us create a branding strategy. And in my brain, David, I never in a million years thought that what would come out of there would be a reworking of any of our visuals, I, because visuals are a secondary part to your brand, right? I'm thinking we're going to be flaming wrench, and Roy's going to come up with some really powerful things about us. But as we're talking, Roy's visiting with me about my background, and he's asking me questions. And our slogan was ignite the power within. And one of the things that he knew that I had constantly said to him is I was like, Roy, we believe in giving people power and hope. And he's like, well, how do you do that? I said, well, I believe power is an actual ability to make change, which means you got to train them. You got to give them real insights. You got to give them real tools. They got to have real substance in their hands. They've got to have, for lack of a better term, they've got to have a sword to swing.
Mhm.
Now, Roy also knew that I have a background in martial arts. I did it in college for a bunch of years and achieved certain levels of mastery at that time in sword fighting and other things. And I said the hope is the belief that you can make the change. And I said, and that hope has to be constantly driven all the time, consistently, especially with people that aren't believing in themselves, which is why we developed this ongoing training solution to where I said, like we're like accountability partners. We're providing resource and power, but we're constantly providing hope. And he goes, well, when I hear Ignite the Power Within, I think about like a big conference where there's hundreds of people and they're at this seminar. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, that's not us. I said, as a matter of fact, I'm kind of an introvert. And that's not really our model. We like to teach small classes. We like 20 to 25 students. We like one-on-one conversations and relationships with coaching clients. We're really intimate. We're customer intimate. So he's listening to all this and he comes back to me and he says, I was sitting here working through all these things. By the way, believe it or not, I was able to get Roy and one of his guys to help me with my campaign, which is unheard of at Roy's, level and with all the wonderful partners that are there. But he goes, I can't really make it work with what you've got going on. You've got this slogan, you've got this flaming wrench that, while it's visually nice, it doesn't actually represent you or your mission or what service excellence means. So you see the sword on the wall,
Mhm.
which is it's representative of the fact that when someone becomes a king, I'm just gonna grab this sword real quick.
Mhm.
Listen to that beautiful
That's
sound.
beautiful.
You hear that? That was not on purpose, but now this one is on purpose. All right. So when someone becomes an owner of a business, they have a lot of responsibilities. And I'm telling Roy that, when it comes to sword battle, like in business, there's really three aspects of it. I said one aspect is the dance. So every time you've watched one of your favorite movies, if you've watched Deadpool or Star Wars, there's these actors that are going back and forth. It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's a lot of fun. But the reality of it is that's the dance. It is an engagement between two people. Actors literally not trying to hurt each other, but trying to entertain you. Well, in business, there's the dance of persuasion, and persuasion only works when you have two willing dance partners. So whether that's the technician and the homeowner, or whether that's the business owner leading his technicians, there's always this dance of persuasion. When we amp it up, this sword can also represent the sport of combat. And what is the sport of combat? Well, if we think about the world of fencing, that's a real sport. There's lots of different sports. There's HEMA, to where you have two people across from each other, and they are fighting out to win. They're fighting for points. It's a competition, but it isn't to the death, right? They have protective gear on. This is a lot like what it's like to be in competition with your rival on the other side of the street. You're not trying to kill them. You are trying to win. You're trying to beat them, but you're not trying to necessarily cause them harm. You're trying to win for your team. But there is another level, isn't there, David?
Mhm.
And that other level is the combat of warriors. And we've all experienced different times in our life where we had to fight tooth and nail. I know I did, to keep this company alive in the very beginning. I was sued by a multi-billion-dollar business, and I had to do real combat of legal application. You know, we got to fight this out with lawyers. I had to do real combat of spirit, where there was a lot of time spent praying for a resolution. There was a lot of internal battles going on there, as well as external battles. So I'm telling Roy these things, and he brings the sword out and says, "This represents you, not a flame and a wrench. This is you." And that's where we're going. And it depends on when people hear this, but they're going to start hearing and seeing a lot of these messages, and we're excited about that because it is true that this really represents us better. And our brand isn't the sword. Our brand is our story, but the sword represents that a whole lot better than a wrench and a flame. And again, Dan's a great visual graphic artist. Anyone that uses Dan's probably going to be very happy with his work. So there's no discredit to Dan, but this is our fourth brand because actually it's our first brand. It's just the first time we've really understood it well enough to go, we're going to get behind this. And this just happens to be the new visual representation of it. But the brand's always been there. We just had to find the right person to help us tell that story. And I'm glad we have. All right. So thanks for asking, man. You're
Yeah.
the first person I got to answer that question for.
No, that was great taking us through the evolution and having that right representation of brand, right? Same, company, same core, people, but just the branding and the messaging, feeling like it fits you. And that's
Right.
most important, right? Whether whatever aspect of business that you're in, you want to feel like your message and your brand is truly represented and presented correctly.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna put the sword back on the wall. And then I've got my next question for you, okay?
All right.
All right. You can sort of still hear that sword singing in the background. Okay, so here's my next question. I had to do a double takes like contractor Rhino marketing. That's real close. So talk about that. Did you know of Chris and his brand before he selected Rhino?
So you know what? I had knew of Chris, but I did not think about that correlation when picking the name of the company in relationship to Chris. It was just, I was debating, figuring out which direction to go in, and I felt like this was a good representation. And it's funny when I had talked to someone just like a week and a half ago, they said, "Oh, they said, well, it seems like everyone's trying to use the Rhino name." And I said, and I know they were talking about Chris, and I'm like, I didn't even think about that.
All right, that might have been my hardest ball question, which is to go, hey, that sounds familiar. All right, back to you, David.
No, no problem.
Thanks for allowing me a question or two. I think I've got one more in the hopper, but I can't remember it now, so I'll save it for when I remember.
All right, you just say that.
I'm serious. I'm like, I think I had a fourth question, but I can't recall. So we better leave them to you, the questioning approach.
So now we talked about the branding, the messaging is there right now currently. Can you tell us about the Kings of Tomorrow?
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. I'll tell you about that as well. This is something else that we realized is we had to align what we do sort of with this concept of who we are. But I started a program a year ago called Spark. And Spark's whole concept was to help small business owners that are doing around 400,000 get to their first 2 million and then get beyond. Ideally in that program, you realistically can grow to your first 3 million. And what I realized was that there was a lot of people that were making certain mistakes. They were trying to play ball a little bit too big before they were ready, and it was really hurting them. So I just essentially asked the question because we've helped a lot of people navigate from the 400,000 mark to multi-million dollars. I'm thinking of like Jack Arnold. When he came to us in Chicago, he was 400,000 ish. I think he's around 8 or 10 this year. So just sat down and just said, okay, what do these guys do? What do we coach them through? And I created the 7 steps to your first 2 million and beyond. Which by the way, you can go to our website, you can watch that webinar for free. You can see exactly what they are. We very much believe in trying to give away as much as we can. But going back to this whole new rolling out new concepts, one of the things that I realized is that I really like the name Spark at the surface level. But when I go power and hope, yes, big things can happen with a spark. That's true. But here's a problem, right? Sparks can easily be put out too. So we wanted to get more aligned with what we're trying to do, which is to let everyone know that everyone has the ability to really, grasp the sword and become the king of their domain. Not excluding women here, right? But we're just capturing one word, the queen of their domain, if you'd like. So what used to be Spark is now going to be referred to as Kings of Tomorrow, right? And the idea of that is really simple. Every single person has that king inside of them. Everyone does. We're going to show you how to master your kingdom. We're going to show you how to dance that dance of persuasion, how to fight that, sport of combat, sport of competition, pardon me, and then how to do the combat of warriors. And people should be able to take the information in this program and execute it. And the average contractor who will go to work of average intelligence, of average resources, can join this program for somewhere under 10,000 a year. That's all in. And they're going to get all the resources that they need. They're going to get coaching, they're going to get group work, and they should be able to hit that $2 million mark in 2 years or even less, depending a little bit on their marketplace and also depending a little bit on their resources. We're going to get your prices fixed. We're going to make you a lot more money. At some point, you got to advertise. And a lot of guys that come to us are still essentially working the relationships that they've harvested, and that's fine. We can do that for a couple months, but we're going to have to build enough resources that they transition to advertising, and that's part of our process. But it's actually step number 6 in the process. So there's 5 other steps that they got to capitalize on before they get overly hung up with, too much lead volume. Because if you're doing 400,000 right now, I'd say the odds are really good that you could actually be doing 800 to a million with exactly what you have if you knew what we knew.
That's good. That's a really good program to be able to offer and to be able to help people take things to the next level.
Yeah.
Um, and having that support and that framework of the coaches and the group and being able to kind of help lead them along that path and realizing that, you touched on a really good point too, is, you may have gotten to a point where, furrows and existing relationships and but then putting, some more emphasis on, marketing, and then making sure that you have the capacity to be able to facilitate that extra growth is going to be important too.
Yeah, no question. I'll give you sort of for the people that want to see it, just go to the website. It's real easy. Just type in Service Excellence, you'll find us. It's right on the main homepage. But the 7 steps that we walk people through, and by the way, these 7 steps are not agnostic to if you're only under 2 million. Oftentimes there's people that have been doing business for so long, they've been in business for 20, 30, 40 years that they're way past 2 million and they're still not doing some of these steps, but they could be so much healthier if they were. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to show people how to fix their gross margin. And what we know is that I don't care what business you're in the world of service, you essentially, when it comes to repairs, you have a service pricing system where you have large components of parts. We got a pricing system and an approach to that. or you've got a service system where it's very few parts and it's mostly man hours. So we got a pricing component for that. And then on the other side of it becomes replacements. So you got to have your three core base models for all those. And when you fix your gross margin, almost everyone, just when they just make that adjustment, they're going to have a lot of extra revenue. Now we know that if you fix someone's gross margin, you raise their prices. That also means that they maybe don't know how to actually communicate this. So inside of the system, we actually include a really valuable program that we call Press Play that shows you how to run that service call from top to bottom. So we've got that covered as well. But number two is control your overhead. And it's surprising to me that most people don't even know what percent they should be aiming for. And when they don't know what percent they should be aiming for, they overshoot it in a hurry. And when you're small, especially with all the fractional resources that we have today, you don't have to bring everything in-house. You can take things out-house for a very long time. You can incorporate technology that will do a lot of this for you and save you a lot of money. Number three is that you have to develop the capabilities of someone who actually is going to be a replacement specialist. Now, that's a capable salesperson. Typically, that's going to be you to start with and someone on your team until you grow. And then as you grow, you might go outside of the pond, but the reality is that it's really hard to convince a salesperson who can go and sell at $3 to $5 million at another organization to come to your place when you don't even have 500,000 on the books. So toughen up, Buttercup. You're going to need to learn to sell. We're going to teach you that. Number four is we got to maximize our quality of the installation. And we talk about ways to do that without having it be dependent upon you with outside contractors. Number five, we want to maximize our installs, which we're kind of working on that now, right? If we got a capable salesperson, we get capable install crews, there's several steps that we can take now to really boost up all of the install potential that we have, which then we get into number six, which is for every able-bodied in the field, we want to market so that we can generate them at least 20 calls per week on average. It's going to be higher in the summer, obviously a little bit lower in the winter, but we want to do that 20 calls per tech per week. And the next goal to this $2 million path is to get to two technicians. Because here's the thing, if you have a model that offers replacements, you got to have a model that offers replacements, okay? But if you have a model that offers replacements, you can actually do $2 million quite easily. And a lot of people will go, you're crazy. But this is true. You can do $2 million quite easily and quite effectively with two technicians that work for you full time, yourself acting as the owner operator and salesperson. And now you have subbed out your install crew. You have multiple quality install crews that you've negotiated rates with and relationships with. And you might at this point have one person in the office, but you could still be subbing out all the way up to 2 million easily, all of your office responsibilities from accounting, bookkeeping, phone calls. So literally it's not that damn hard to build a $2 million business when it's you and two other folks. But again, you got to have a model that has replacement in mind. HVAC leans real heavy on that. Plumbing, when we understand how to do repipes and we find some repipe crews, tankless water heaters. Electrical, we might have to grow our tech base a little bit, but here's the thing, the electrical average ticket is massive compared to the other guys with fantastic margins. So we still got to be hitting panels. We still got to get a few rewires, but maybe we're not going to get as many as the other trades. So maybe that takes maybe more closer to three techs. But the reality is that you don't need a 10-person company to do 2 million. You just don't. But you do need manpower. They just don't have to be on your payroll every hour of every day looking at you for every cent that comes their way. That's our 7 steps. It's really pretty damn simple. But if your viewers want to watch it in full detail, just go grab the show. It's totally free. I think it's like 40 minutes. I'll take you through it step by step.
Yeah, that's amazing. Those 7 steps are very insightful. And, if you're listening, make sure you go check that out on the website and take a look at that. Because, that's really important. Each one of those steps are, foundational pillars to be able to help you to be able to get to the next level. And I love that toughen up, Buttercup. You will be the salesperson until for the
It's
foreseeable.
true. No, it's true. So, there are some uncomfortable skills um that depending upon the size of your business, you're gonna have to learn. Look, if I bought a heating and air conditioning company today because of what I know, and because more than even what I know, this is gonna sound crazy, but because of what I have. And what I have access to is resources and really good people who know how to do things. Today it's easier for someone in my position. And that's always going to be true. When you're competing against the marketplace and someone's got a lot of resources, they can hire out a lot of who's faster than you can.
Mhm.
Which means you better be really serious as a young business owner, like I was, ready to sell my house 13 years ago when I didn't have the resources that I had today. I was scrapping it. I've done what I'm asking these small business owners to do. I've done it more than once, but I know what it means to be small and scrappy and to, bleed over the thing that you love and to protect it. And I'm glad I did it. I was willing to do it. And I believe that these people that are listening can do it too. But what I'm going to tell you is one of the first lessons that we teach these folks is one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to stockpile resources. And this would be a piece of advice I would give to, I'm just thinking about the small business guy that may be listening to this. And he's a technician and he's thinking, I've started my company and summer's coming to an end and I've got X number of dollars in my bank account. What I'm going to tell you is that a lot of young business owners are real stupid with their money. And I hope I'm talking to you directly, Mr. Young Technician sitting in a truck with $120,000 in your bank account at the end of summer. You've never seen so much money in your life and you're getting ready to be stupid. You're getting ready to buy the cool F-150. You're getting ready to go to Vegas and say, I'm just going to blow 10. I'm just going to blow 10 grand. That's going to turn into 20. You're getting ready to do something real stupid. Stop it. Don't do that dumb ass shit. Stop that. Put that 120 and you're going to eat on some of that 120 through this winter time. Don't go on a vacation. Don't buy a fancy truck. Don't be an idiot. Next year, work your ass off again all through the summer and grow that 100 that shrunk down to maybe 90, maybe it shrunk down to 80. Grow it to 300 or 400,000. And don't go buy the truck. Don't go buy a house. Stop it. Do it one more year and have $600,000 plus that you've paid taxes on that you don't owe Uncle Sam. And now I want you to do something a little bit crazy. And it ain't blowing on a truck and it ain't blowing on Vegas. I want you to start putting money into the growth of your company now. Get crazy and actually make an investment in your business. Start marketing at a more aggressive rate. Start recruiting at a more aggressive rate. Increase your training. Set aside 3% of your revenue to really go out there and train people. Start attracting them. And that is how you will grow a really powerful business in a few years without having to take on an investor. Because I'm going to tell you something, there's a lot of investors out there that are promising these guys all they need to know. And all you got to do is give me a piece of your business. And they don't read the fine print. So they give up 35-40% of their business. And then they go sign equity loans so that they can fuel the company. And then what they don't realize is they gave up 30-40% of their business and they signed loans over, but the investor doesn't have 30 or 40% of the loan. You're still 100% responsible for the debts you accumulate. Literally, all you did was give away your money. That's literally all you did, and you went into debt. And if you can't cut it, the investor's out nothing. If you want to know one of the main reasons why I started this program, this is it. Because, yes, am I asking people to pay me? I am. Give me less than $10,000. I'll keep you from being really stupid. It'll cost you a lot more to try to do it on your own. You can do it however you want to, but there's a better way. It'll cost you a whole lot more to partner up with the wrong person that you don't understand what you've done. This is a very inexpensive education. But look, here at the end of the day, this is what I would say to anyone that's listening. Don't join this and not do anything with it because you're wasting your time. Because while knowing something is the first step, it's doing that makes it real. And doing and suffering is left up for kings. People that really believe in their kingdom, they're going to grow it.
That's words well said. Practical advice to those that are listening, to be strategic, be smart. Don't give up your company for nothing. Don't go out and splurge. And like you said, it's tempting. You've never seen that much money in your life, but do something, valuable with it. Put it back into the business so that you can grow. And not kind of lose your footing or lose your momentum because you wanted to splurge on a truck in Vegas.
Well, I think that's the way to do it, and I know that's not very sexy.
Yep.
People hear me give that advice, and they're like, "That Todd doesn't understand how to use debt." And I'm like, "No, I do. I totally understand how to use debt. Um, I understand the power of it. What I also know is that a person that uses debt needs to have developed the financial discipline to be responsible to it, which is why a lot of the banks won't give them the money because the banks are in the business of making their money back. So they go to high risk cabbage loans. They go to investors that have maybe some interesting alternatives to what they expect. They 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 don't really have that much to lose, but you don't realize that. Um, it's just it's an interesting time right now, David. We've never been in this time before. Uh, there was never a time, rewind 10 years ago, where when I started my company, I was a 15% partner with Will. I did all the day to day. Will put up the money. And he didn't have to come in, and I worked it, right? And Will had the financial responsibility, and I put in all the sweat equity. That was rare. Um, that was rare when you could actually find someone who had the capital and the cash to sweat equity something and do it. Private equity wasn't knocking on everyone's door, and it wasn't making every Tom, Dick, and Harry think that what they can do is accumulate a bunch of service companies and we're all going to get rich. So in a gold rush, everyone thinks they can be a gold miner, right? So and everyone thinks they're going to get rich, but usually that's not the case. So when we and this is something that just as a company we've even had to change the way that we did things. When someone would come to us in the past, it's probably a fairly easy process into us saying yes. Yeah, we'll help you because our mission was power and hope, and it still is our mission. Today, however, while that is our mission, the current course of the landscape has made it to where we are way more selective. We don't have a salesperson. We have a guy named Cho Person, and he is the guardian of culture. And imagine his job, because his job is to find the right people to let in and to make sure that the wrong people stay out, which means lots of people are being told no for our services. Lots of people are being told no for our services, especially on the Your Accountability program, where it's a coaching relationship. With my Kings of Tomorrow, we're a little bit more lenient because we understand that they're young and they don't know what a $5 million business would know. But what we're looking for is dedicated people. If we even get the sniff that these people are quitters, we don't even want them to join. It's like it's pointless. Save your money. Go take your $654 a month and go buy some ads. But don't come over here if you don't intend on doing anything. But anyway, my point is that all of this potential of money has almost made people look at what we do like they're playing the lottery, not like they're getting up and they're going to do a hard job every day. It's a hard job. To do it well, you got to work really hard. You got to know some good things. Anyway, I, I'll get off my soapbox here.
No, that was good, solid information. So now that we're wrapping up, any final words of advice? And then again, can you let the people know where they can find you at?
Yeah. So my biggest piece of advice would be to wherever you're at right now, look down the road 15 years from now and say to yourself, do I still want to be doing what I'm doing today? Does it thrill you? That doesn't mean do you not want it to be better, but do you want to do what you're doing today? I was thinking about exactly this thing this morning. I'm 45 years old, and I could realistically see myself still checking into this business until I'm 70, 75,
Mhm.
easily. 30 years from now, I'll be an old man in 30 years, but I really like what I'm doing. Do I want my day to day to change? Yes, I do. But when I look that far down the road and say, do I want to be doing this 15 years from now? And if I do, how can I build a company in a manner that makes it that it's easy and enjoyable for me to still be doing this 15 years from now? And also it does another thing too, right? It gives you long casting vision. And if you can't honestly say that you want to be doing this 15 years from now, well, it just means one of two things. It means that you built something that it means a couple things. Number one, it means that you built something that's worthy of selling and you've done your time, you want to sell it. Cool, everyone should sell, go do that. No problem. Or it means that you've built something that is an absolute nightmare and you can't imagine yourself ever staying in this for that long. What I'd say to that is if you can sell that nightmare to someone else and get good money, go for it. But you'd probably be happier because you started this damn thing for a reason. You'd probably be happier if you actually fix the nightmare. And even if you want to sell it after you fix the nightmare, it's going to be worth more.
Mhm.
So fix it. Fix the nightmare. All right. Fix the nightmare. And before you make big decisions that might not be good for you, I'd always say follow the halt scenario. And the halt scenario is when you're hungry, hungry is another way of saying desperate. When you're angry, when you're lonely, you feel like you're the only one that understands something. And when you're flat out tired, that is absolutely no time to make a decision. You need to step away, go find rest, go find comfort, go fuel your spirit, and come back to it. Because the last thing I would want folks to know is that we want every single one of our clients to exit successfully. But what we know is that you should exit on your very best day, never your worst. So we're just out here trying to help people have their best days.
Best days is possible.
Yeah.
Especially with, just the current state of everything. And I think that uncertainty, people are worried. And just to be able to give people encouragement and to be able to help them power through, to be able to get the job done and continue on to the next day is so important.
There we go. Here's my last thing I'd say. If you want to check out that video, it's on the website. I've already said that. If you have a challenge and you would like to talk to us about your challenge, if you on the website, you'll see, get a free call with a coach. That free call is a no obligation call. There's no gotchas, there's no catches. If someone brings us a challenge, we will invest the time with you to tell you what you need to do in that challenge. By the way, knowing is the first step. Doing makes it real. You got to make it real, okay? But we will tell you what you need to do to make it real. It'll be up to you to take it from there. In our partnership and our accountability relationships, it's up to us together. But if you want the advice as to what you need to do, now listen, I'm going to limit it to just one, David, because I can't fix all of your problems. But bring us one of your problems, the one that you feel like you got the greatest, headache with, and I'll get you hooked up with a real coach. And Joe will do that, I should say. Joe will get you hooked up with a real coach. You'll talk to him, and we'll just give that to your members here as a gift.
Appreciate that.
You bet.
Excellent. Well, Todd, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate
Hmm.
your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, David.
Great. Everyone, thanks so much for listening. Make sure you check Todd out and tune into the next episode. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blueprint Boost for Contractors. We hope you found today's insights and strategies valuable for your contracting business. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring content that truly matters.